News as Congress has just put in place a massive $1.7 trillion spending bill for 2023. And this could have massive impacts on your retirement as well. So we're going to discuss the details in this video, as well as comparing how much money they're spending on certain programs and comparing that to how much they could do for seniors if they were spending that on retirement benefits as well. So guys, let's jump right into it. As always, like and subscribe if you like this content, and drop a comment down below. Let me know your thoughts. At the end of this video, I'm going to respond to your comments as well. So guys, we all know that Congress is working on a $1.66 trillion government spending bill. We're going to jump into the details, kind of an outline of what they're putting in this bill, how much of that is going to help seniors in retirement, what they did not include in the bill, including the Social Security Expansion Act that Bernie Sanders was pushing for this year, literally the last few months, which would give $200 per month in additional Social Security benefits. That unfortunately was not included, but we're going to talk about what was included and compare what was included, how much those things cost, to how much it would cost to help seniors. At the very top of this, folks, let's talk about how much money the U.S. government sends to other countries, which is okay, right? It's okay when the richest country in the world helps other countries, but it's not okay when they're not helping folks who are in retirement before they're helping other countries, right? And let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below. But essentially, in top news right now is that Zelensky is leaving Ukraine for the first time since this global conflict. He's coming to the U.S. to essentially say thanks, as the U.S. government has given over $30 billion in 2022 to help Ukraine. And they just approved an additional $40 billion for 2023. Now, to put that in perspective, $70 billion. If they used $70 billion to help folks who are in retirement, that would be enough to do the $1,000 voucher that Bernie Sanders was trying to approve for seniors across the board, and he wanted to include that in the Inflation Reduction Act. Now, that would cost around $60 billion, and they've already pledged $70 billion to Ukraine. Again, not saying they shouldn't be helping folks in Ukraine. We support Ukraine, and it's good that they're helping, but they should be helping folks in America first. Let me know in the comments if you agree. Now, they've also, in total, it looks like they're pledging about 70 to $80 billion in 2023 to help other countries globally. Again, that would be enough for that $1,000 voucher as well. Now, recently, Bernie Sanders was on the news saying that we need to help the American people first, ahead of corporate greed and ahead of helping other countries. So really quickly, let's take a look. Let's see what Bernie Sanders said. Then we're going to jump into the details, exactly what is in this $1.7 trillion spending bill, what was not included, and how these things compare to how much it would cost to increase retirement benefits. But quickly, let's take a look and see what Bernie Sanders said.
I am the longest serving independent in the history of the United States Congress. So what I'm going to tell you today is not something that you hear very often on Fox or CNN or ABC or the Washington Post, or in fact in the halls of Congress. What I'm going to tell you is that the working class and the middle class of this country are in serious trouble. We are moving toward an oligarchic form of society where a small number of billionaires not only have extraordinary wealth, they have extraordinary political power. We are living at a time when half of our people are living paycheck to paycheck in the wealthiest country on earth, when 70 million Americans have no health insurance or are underinsured, when we have a starvation minimum wage at the federal level of $7.25 an hour, where half of the elderly workers, older workers in this country, have nothing in the bank as they fear retirement. What I believe is that now is the time not to defend the establishment, which is doing phenomenally well. when you have two people on top in America who own more wealth than the bottom 40%. Two people, top 1% owns more wealth than the bottom 92%. CEOs of major corporations today are making 350 times more than their workers, and we have more income and wealth inequality than any time in American history. Now is the time for the American people to stand up, make it clear that enough is enough, and that we need a government that starts representing all of our people, not just wealthy campaign contributors. What does that mean? It means that we have to end a corrupt political system in which big money buys elections. It means that we have to end a very unfair tax system in which billionaires in a given year don't pay a nickel in federal taxes. It means we have to raise the federal minimum wage to at least $15 an hour. It means that we have to join every other major country on earth in understanding that health care is a human right, not a privilege, and stop spending twice as much per capita on health care to enrich the drug companies and the insurance companies. It means that Medicare is going to have to negotiate prescription drug prices so that we can lower the cost of prescription drugs by 50%. It means that we cannot continue to be the only major country on earth not to have paid family and medical leave. It means that we have to restore the $300 tax credit so that we are not continuing to be a nation which has one of the highest rates of childhood poverty in the United States. It means that we have to expand Medicare to cover dental care, hearing aids, and eyeglasses so that elderly people in this country can live out their remaining years in dignity. And it means, among other things, that we cannot continue to ignore climate change, which is an existential threat to this planet, and obviously, given the tragedies that we have faced in the last.
Okay, so Bernie touching on a lot here, right? He mentioned healthcare, he mentioned lowering prescription drug costs, he mentioned increasing benefits, he mentioned specifically seniors struggling in retirement who don't have a lot of money saved up. And I just quickly want to touch on the fact that although it was a couple of years ago when he originally proposed the $200 per month boost for those who are on Social Security benefits, just earlier this year in June, he proposed the Social Security Expansion Act, if you see here on your screen, which would do the exact same thing. So he's still been pushing for this, right? This isn't something that he's put on the back burner. He still genuinely wants to get this done. Now, Mitch McConnell, well, first of all, Bernie Sanders also came out and said that we're spending too much on the military and defense, which again is okay. We have to do these things, but not at the cost of not making sure we're funding programs for folks who are retirement, right? Social Security, SSI, ssdi, all of these other benefits we've talked about on this channel, as well as helping folks fund their 401k. Well, in response, Mitch McConnell came out slamming Bernie Sanders, saying that it was counterproductive and he should not be trying to help the American people when they're just trying to get the military budget done. So just really quickly, we're going to take a look and see what Mitch McConnell said, criticizing Bernie Sanders for trying to help the American people.
Using party line reconciliation bills outside the normal, increasing domestic. Our Democratic colleagues have already spent 2 years massively increasing domestic spending using party line reconciliation bills outside the normal appropriations process. So clearly our colleagues cannot now demand even more domestic spending than President Biden even requested in exchange for funding the United States military. Funding our national defense is a basic governing duty. The Commander-in-Chief's own party does not get to demand a pile of unrelated goodies in exchange for doing their job and funding our armed forces. If House and Senate Democratic colleagues can accept these realities in the very near future, we may still have a shot at assembling a full-year funding bill that will give our military commanders the certainty they need to invest, plan, and stay competitive with rivals like China. If our Democratic colleagues can't accept those realities, the option will be a short-term bipartisan funding bill into early next year. Now, on a related matter, events from Europe to Asia to the Middle East.
Okay, so it looks like that short-term funding bill, they extended that for about a week, right, to keep the government from shutting down. Now they're going to approve this $1.7 trillion spending bill to last the entire year. And this is going to include tons of money to provide funding for other countries, right? And like we talked about previously in today's show, the U.S. spent about $30 billion on Ukraine. Now they're earmarking another $40 billion for Ukraine in 2023. And if you look on your screen here, these orange bars show you how much the U.S. has been spending annually since 2018 in helping other countries. So in 2018, they spent $35 billion, then $33 billion in 2019. 2020, they spent $35 billion. 2021, they spent $40 billion, but that doesn't even take into account the additional $30 billion on Ukraine. So they spent that's $40 billion they spent in 2021. And then in 2022, they spent about another $40 billion plus $30 billion for Ukraine. So that's $70 billion. And now it's looking like they're going to do about the same in 2023. They're earmarking anywhere between $70 and $80 billion to help other countries. Again, that's great and that's fine, but they should be helping the American people first and making sure they're properly funding programs in this country. Again, let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below. Now, as far as what it would take to do either that voucher that Bernie Sanders wants to do, right, that $1,000 voucher, or that $200 per month boost that Bernie Sanders wants to do, let's take a quick look and see what would have to take place in order to get that done. Again, just the $1,000 voucher would be about $60 billion. They could include that in this annual spending bill, which would only be about a 3.5% increase on the bill. Again, 3.5%. It's nothing crazy. They can throw that in there to help the American people, or they can just use the same amount of money to help other countries, but not help folks who are in retirement, right? Now, another tactic they could use is actually increasing the payroll tax, which obviously this is the controversial topic. Nobody likes to be taxed, but at the end of the day, this is an option they could use. Now, if we look at the payroll tax currently, it's bringing in about $1.2 trillion per year, and that's taking into account the Medicare tax as well. So if you take that out, the Social Security portion of that, it's bringing in somewhere around $1 trillion, right? That's a ballpark, but it's around $1 trillion. Now, at the same time, Social Security benefits is paying out about $1.3 trillion. This is why we're running at a deficit, right? We're paying out more currently than we're taking in, and some of that money is being taken out of the Social Security Trust Fund. Now, when you think about the option of increasing the payroll tax, right, to potentially increase benefits or do the $200 per month boost, even if it's temporary. So if we're taking in about $1 trillion a year, even if you only do a 10% increase in the payroll tax, and I'm not saying increase it to 10%, I'm saying a 10% increase. See, currently the payroll tax is 6.2%, so a 10% increase would take it to about 6.9%, let's just say 7% to make it even. That would not take a ton of money out of any person's pocket, right? The average person, maybe they would lose an extra few $100s per year, but that would give them an extra $100 billion per year for Social Security benefits, right? Maybe they could increase benefits across the board. Maybe they could do something like Bernie Sanders wants to do with this voucher or this monthly payment to help seniors around benefits. The point I'm trying to make here, folks, is it's not that crazy, right? A slight increase in the payroll tax creates massive inflows in revenue because we have so much tax money coming in. So let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below. Now, as far as this 1.66 or $1.7 trillion spending bill, first of all, this is the budget, right, for 2023. This is outlining, okay, we're going to spend $10 billion on this, $100 billion on that, $50 billion on the other, and then the government has to then go ahead and find that money, and they find that money two ways. One, through revenue from taxes, and two, from borrowing from themselves and increasing the debt, which is why they always have to increase the debt ceiling, right? Now, Chuck Schumer is celebrating, folks. He's celebrating, saying Democrats are getting massive progress done. They're helping the American people, and he's super excited about getting this spending bill done. Now, let's quickly take a look. Let's see what Chuck Schumer is saying, right? What he's celebrating. I'm going to kind of burst the bubble here, folks. There's not a ton to celebrate when it comes to Social Security benefits, but we're going to touch on that right after we take a look and see what Chuck Schumer had to say regarding this annual spending bill.
Mr. President, I have good news. With days left before Christmas, Democrats and Republicans have reached an omnibus agreement completed at 1:15 a.m. early this morning. In the very early hours of the morning, Chairman Leahy and Ranking Member Shelby released a long-sought, bipartisan, bicameral omnibus appropriations bill for fiscal year 2023. The omnibus is the last thing we have to do to close out a very successful 117th Congress. And we've taken another step, a major step towards reaching the goal line. After a lot of hard work, this package represents an aggressive investment in American families, American workers, and America's national defense. It'll give our troops a raise, make health care more affordable for millions, and it fulfills the promise Democrats made to defend democracy at home and abroad through the ECA. It was no easy feat to piece this bill together. And if our amazing appropriator staff needs a quick power nap at their desks this morning, no one's going to blame them. I want to thank Chairman Leahy and Ranking Member Shelby for working on this omnibus for months without cease. I can't think of a more fitting send-off for our two esteemed appropriators than this. If this omnibus goes down as Senator Leahy and Shelby's final legislative contribution as senators, then I say, bravo, thank you, well done. I also want to thank my colleagues in the House, above all, Speaker Pelosi and Chair DeLauro, for their relentless work. The clock is now ticking until government front runs out this Friday. Between now and the end of the week, the watchwords for the Senate will be speed and cooperation. For the information of senators, we're going to get going on this process today. Members should be ready to vote to lay the omnibus before the Senate as soon as this afternoon. We must finish passing this omnibus before the deadline on Friday when government funding runs out. But we hope to do it much sooner than that because we're mindful that a nor'easter is barreling down the East Coast on Thursday and Friday. Let me say this again. The sooner we pass the omnibus, the better. We have until Friday before funding runs out, but we ought to get it done well before then. I hope no senator will stand in the way of us finishing our work. We cannot afford a shutdown. More importantly, the American people need us to act quickly. As I said, the American people need us to act quickly to avert the looming danger of a government shutdown. Nobody wants a shutdown. Nobody benefits from a shutdown. And so I hope nobody here will stand in the way from funding the government ASAP. Now let's turn to the omnibus itself. This funding bill is overflowing with very good news for our troops, for the Ukrainian brave fighters, for American jobs, for our families, and for American democracy. After a lot of hard work, Democrats will fulfill our promise to pass reforms to the Electoral Count Act into law. 2 years after January 6th, the attack on our Capitol remains an indelible.
All right, guys, so Chuck Schumer obviously celebrating this massive spending bill, right? But so far, we're not seeing a ton of stuff here that's going to increase benefits or kind of give direct payments or anything like that. Let's do a quick overview of what exactly is in this bill. First of all, one of the most notable things, which we already talked about in today's show, is the aid for Ukraine, right? An additional $40 billion for Ukraine and an additional $40 billion for other countries across the globe. Again, $80 billion would be enough for that $1,000 voucher. They're also adding $48 billion for FEMA and disaster assistance. $40 billion, again, that is a massive amount. Obviously, these are things that have to get done, but it's really shameful when you see that, emergency disaster assistance, obviously that's a strong priority, but why isn't it a priority to make sure we're creating a strong retirement system in this country, right? Obviously that system is broken, so it should be treated as an emergency as well. But let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below. I mean, $40 billion to emergency disaster relief. We'd like to see $40 billion going towards retirement in some form, right? Whether that's helping expand 401k contributions, whether that's increasing benefits like Social Security and SSI, things like that. This should essentially be treated as an emergency as well. Then they have changes to Medicaid, which is actually going to make it harder to qualify for Medicaid. During the pandemic, they were allowing people to basically self-attest that they qualified and they weren't letting states kick you off. So basically millions of people are going to lose their coverage who otherwise would have still been on Medicaid. They're also going to create more funding, provide more funding for Pell Grants, which is essentially for low-income students. They're basically just grants, right? They're not loans. You don't have to pay them back. So they're providing more funding to increase that as well. Now, they're obviously spending a ton of money on the military. It's reported that $50 billion itself out of that $800 billion, right? The military and defense budget is going to be about $800 billion. About $50 billion of that is just to address inflation. So across the board, everything's a little more expensive. We're going to toss in an extra $53 billion for the military. Again, why aren't they doing this for the retirement programs, right? For Social Security, for 401ks, things like that. I mean, obviously, there's the COLA increase, but we know COLA comes in and then inflation keeps getting worse. So really, it's a net loss, right? Now, SNAP benefits are being increased. Folks who are on EBT, they're creating a summer program. So folks who get EBT when their kids are in school, they're going to try and provide a $40 per month grocery voucher for each child. So that's great. More money for healthcare, more money for utility assistance. So for those of you who apply for utility assistance or are thinking about it, they're going to be providing $5 billion for the low-income home energy assistance program. And to apply for those, just contact your local utility company and they should help you kind of fill out those applications. But they're expanding that. That's good news, especially with, fuel, energy, and gas, electricity. Those are the things that have gone up the most when it comes to inflation. Now, one thing that's going to help seniors as well, if you have a 401k and if your 401k is something that you're trying actually not to use at the moment so you can keep growing that 401k, they're actually going to increase the age at which they require you to take a minimum distribution, right? So if you have a 401k at a certain age, they require you to take a certain amount out every single year because the government wants to get its tax money, right? They want to make sure eventually you're withdrawing that money and paying taxes on it. But this ends up causing problems for a lot of seniors because sometimes seniors, they want to keep saving that money in their 401k so it keeps growing in order to make sure they have that financial security that they'll know that 401k is going to be there forever, as opposed to being forced to draw on it. It might run out a lot more quickly, obviously. But in this spending bill, they're probably going to increase that age to, I believe, 75 years old. Don't quote me on that, but I believe it was 75 years old. More money for the EPA, more money for affordable housing. So $3.6 billion is going to be spread across the country to build and create more affordable housing. And that includes renting and more affordable housing for folks who want to buy. Now, what's not included in this bill, right? Well, the $1,000 voucher that Bernie Sanders was pushing for, that's not included in this package, right? Now, we also do not have the Social Security Expansion Act. If you see on your screen here, the Social Security Expansion Act was introduced on June 9th by Bernie Sanders and Oregon Democratic Representative Peter DeFazio. And they wanted to provide a $200 per month voucher or check for everyone on benefits for the entire year of 2023. And this was exciting because we knew that a lot of Democrats were pushing for that back, in 2020 and 2021, but really that basically fell to the wayside, and Bernie Sanders kind of revived that idea, right? He said, you know what, let's craft an actual bill. He put the bill on paper, he put pen to paper, and he introduced it in the Senate. That got a lot of folks excited, right? Especially with inflation, they should do something to help folks who are in retirement, right? Folks who are on a fixed income. It's hard for people who are retired to increase their income, right? If you're young, if you're of working age, you can go get a second job, you can go drive for Uber. But if you're retired, if you're living on your 401k, if you're living on your dividends from your stocks, if you're living on selling your stocks, every year in increments, or your Social Security benefits, you need something to help you with this inflation, or your retirement funds are going to be you're going to go through them a lot more quickly, right? So that is what the Social Security Expansion Act is supposed to address. But unfortunately, it did not make it in this package, right? That is the biggest thing that did not make it in this package. So what else is in here that could potentially help seniors, right? We already have the fact that they're providing more affordable housing funding. They're providing more funding for SNAP and nutrition benefits, things like that. They're trying to change the 401k law so you're not required to withdraw from them as early as you are now, which will help those who are retired and want to kind of preserve their 401k so it lasts longer. That's great news. But what else is in here, right? Because we have some advocacy groups celebrating that this is a big win for seniors in this spending bill. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, I disagree. Maybe it's a small victory, maybe it's something to, kind of clap your hands a little bit, but there's no massive, changes here for seniors, right? There's massive spending, and we've shown here how there's so much spending that they could be spending more on retirement programs, right? They could do it. They're spending $80 billion on other countries next year. There's no excuse to not spend at least $80 billion on helping seniors in retirement, bolstering 401k programs, right? Expanding Social Security benefits, providing more ways for seniors to live a comfortable retirement, especially with inflation rapidly deteriorating people's savings. But some advocacy groups, like the Senior Living Association, is saying that this is a big win for a couple of reasons. One, they are including a lot more funding for workforce that helps seniors. And this includes like home health care, nursing home care, things like that, and specifically home health care services to help seniors get health care in the comfort of their own home. So that's great news, and that's basically the main thing that some advocacy groups are celebrating. They're going to put millions, it looks like it's going to be about $285 million to expand healthcare workers that specifically help seniors, like home healthcare and things like that. They're also putting more money into affordable housing, which we talked about in this video as well, and more funding into research and development for healthcare that'll help seniors, like for Alzheimer's treatment, cancer, diabetes, things like that. Obviously, that's more to help seniors down the road. Folks who are already retired now probably won't see the benefits of these things as research and development results take, decades, right? Sometimes multiple decades to really come to fruition, right? But if we quickly look at the details here, check this out. This is basically a PDF of Democrats celebrating this annual $1.7 trillion spending bill, similarly to how Chuck Schumer was celebrating as well. And if you look on your screen, priorities of Democrats included in this spending package. So let's take a look. It's a little more detailed here. And let's see, does it include much for seniors? We already gave you kind of like a high-level overview here, right? And you know what, folks? There's not a ton here, right? So these are their priorities. And I would like to see their priorities include bolstering retirement programs, right? 401k, Social Security benefits, things like that. So they're going to have $58 billion for infrastructure. Folks, didn't we already have the freaking bipartisan infrastructure package? I mean, give me a break here, right? I mean, and like Bernie Sanders said, human infrastructure is the most important aspect of the process, right? What is human infrastructure? Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security benefits, 401k programs, other programs in place to help folks in retirement. And it's worth noting that this is coming out of the Highway Trust Fund, kind of similarly to how they're taking money out of the Social Security Trust Fund because they're running at a deficit, right? Now, they're also going to spend more on support for public schools and college access, like we talked about the Pell Grants. They're also going to put $18 billion into helping children in low-income households try and have a chance to go to college, so that's great. But imagine $18 billion going into retirement benefits. How far would that go? Again, you got to help the children, but we should be taking care of those who are in retirement as well. More funding for childcare, like we talked about previously in this video. More funding for research and development, and this is typically through the NIH, where Dr. Fauci previously worked. $48 billion. Again, that would basically be enough for that voucher that Bernie Sanders wants to include as well. Obviously, research and development is important, but funding these vital programs is important as well, right? And they go on to talk about opioid abuse, food insecurity, funding for SNAP benefits, and things like that. SNAP benefits is a massive program, folks. They're putting $154 billion into the SNAP program. This is an increase of $13 billion year over year. It's a very important program. That's a massive amount, right? If they could spend $154 billion on SNAP, why not add an extra $100 billion to Social Security or, other retirement programs? Or why not increase the payroll tax, from 6.2% to 7% to make sure that we have these programs bolstered how they should be? Let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below. Now, for those of you who are just joining today's show, I'm going to quickly recap what exactly we're talking about here. And mainly what we're talking about is this massive spending bill that is on the way to be approved in Congress, right? By the time you're watching this video, it may or may not be approved. This is going live on Wednesday. They're expected to get it done by Thursday or Friday because of the holiday. And they're actually pushing to get it done even sooner because of this giant winter storm coming, right? There's a good chance they might actually get it done today, which sounds crazy, but they're probably going to approve a $1.7 trillion stimulus package, right? And we're talking about what's included in this for seniors and what was left out and how this could affect your retirement. We're also comparing the amount of money spent on other programs compared to how much that would have helped seniors in retirement, right? And one of the biggest examples we gave was Ukraine, as Zelensky is on his way here to the US, first time he's left Ukraine since this conflict began, to basically say thank you, as the US has already spent $30 billion on Ukraine in 2022. Now they're on their way to approving another $40 billion for 2023. That's $70 billion, folks. And obviously, help Ukraine. We support Ukraine, but help bolster retirement programs as well, right? And that's $70 billion. And we touched on the fact that that would literally be enough for that voucher that Bernie Sanders wants to approve, that $1,000 voucher. We also talked about the fact that in 2023, not only are they approving $40 billion for Ukraine, but they're approving about another $40 billion for other countries as well. And if you look on your screen here, these orange bars show you how much the U.S. has spent every year on funding other countries, right? In 2018, it was $35 billion, 2019, $33 billion, 2020, $35 billion, 2021, $40 billion, and 2022, about another $40 billion. But that doesn't take into account the $30 billion for Ukraine. So in actuality, in 2021, they spent about $70 billion helping other countries. And again, that's fine. The richest country in the world should help other countries, but they should be helping the people in this country first. So again, let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below. So essentially, we talked about the fact that there are some things here included for seniors, right? They are increasing research and development for illnesses that affect seniors the most. They're increasing funding for affordable housing. They're increasing funding for things like SNAP benefits, which help provide nutrition and things like that to not just seniors, but those who are low income. Things like this that will affect seniors. One of the biggest things was increasing the 401k age limit, which is basically, that is a minimum withdrawal limit, saying, you know what, once you're a certain age, the government wants their tax money, so you have to draw from your 401k at least a minimum amount every single year. Now, they're expected to increase that age, which is good for seniors who don't want to tap into their 401k yet because they want to preserve their 401k and make sure it lasts longer. That is especially important right now with inflation deteriorating seniors' retirement savings, meaning, the faster you deplete those savings, the harder you kind of get this exponential decay, right? Because you need that compounding interest to keep working in your favor. But when you blow through 10% of your savings in 1 year, all of a sudden, every year, you're not getting that compounding interest that you would have gotten. So your benefits run out a lot more quickly, right? But let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below. With that said, folks, the biggest thing we're excited about now is the fact that Bernie Sanders was trying to include the Social Security Expansion Act in this annual spending package. And if you guys didn't know, in June, Bernie Sanders was trying to include what he calls the Social Security Expansion Act, which would provide a $200 per month increase in benefits for people on Social Security, SSI, and SSDI for the entire year of 2023. Now, experts think this would cost about $100 billion per year, which again is essentially what they're spending on other countries. So it's not too crazy to expect that they should include these programs as well. Now, if you guys are just joining the stream, before we wrap up, I want to play a clip from Bernie Sanders supporting seniors, saying that we need to not only help people in other countries, we need to not only fund our military, but we need to make sure that we're funding the American people properly, right? We need to make sure that funding is being used in a way that programs are put in place to help people thrive. So let's take a quick look. If you're just joining the stream, if you've been on the stream from earlier, you saw this earlier, but if you're just joining, let's take a quick look and see what Bernie Sanders had to say.
I am the longest serving independent in the history of the United States Congress. So what I'm going to tell you today is not something that you hear very often on Fox or CNN or ABC or the Washington Post, or in fact in the halls of Congress. What I'm going to tell you is that the working class and the middle class of this country are in serious trouble. We are moving toward an oligarchic form of society where a small number of billionaires not only have extraordinary wealth, they have extraordinary political power. We are living at a time when half of our people are living paycheck to paycheck in the wealthiest country on earth, when 70 million Americans have no health insurance or are underinsured, when we have a starvation minimum wage at the federal level of $7.25 an hour, where half of the elderly workers, older workers in this country, have nothing in the bank as they fear retirement. What I believe is that now is the time not to defend the establishment, which is doing phenomenally well. When you have two people on top in America who own more wealth than the bottom 40%, two people, top 1% owns more wealth than the bottom 92%. CEOs of major corporations today are making 350 times more than their workers, and we have more income and wealth inequality than any time in American history. Now is the time for the American people to stand up, make it clear that enough is enough, and that we need a government that starts representing all of our people, not just wealthy campaign contributors. What does that mean? It means that we have to end a corrupt political system in which big money buys elections. It means that we have to end a very unfair tax system in which billionaires in a given year don't pay a nickel in federal taxes. It means we have to raise the federal minimum wage to at least $15 an hour. It means that we have to join every other major country on earth in understanding that health care is a human right, not a privilege, and stop spending twice as much per capita on health care to enrich the drug companies and the insurance companies. It means that Medicare is going to have to negotiate prescription drug prices so that we can lower the cost of prescription drugs by 50%. It means that we cannot continue to be the only major country on earth not to have paid family and medical leave. It means that we have to restore the $300 tax credit so that we are not continuing to be a nation which has one of the highest rates of childhood poverty in the United States. It means that we have to expand Medicare to cover dental care, hearing aids, and eyeglasses so that elderly people in this country can live out their remaining years in dignity. And it means, among other things, that we cannot continue to ignore climate change.
Okay, so Bernie Sanders obviously not happy with what's included in this annual spending bill. It's a massive bill, and they could have included much more to bolster retirement programs. And folks, let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you're just joining the stream, I encourage you to kind of rewind to the beginning. We covered a ton of topics in today's show. And at the end of today's show right now, I'm going to go over some comments. If you guys want to stick around, that's great. But if not, please don't forget to like, subscribe if you like this content, and I'll see you on the next show. But Bruce Bowman said, so here we are again. Can I expect my Social Security payments this month? Absolutely, Bruce. Your payments should come uninterrupted. William P said, hi, how are you guys doing? Thanks, William P. We're doing well. Judith said, I hope this summer leaf goes soon. Yes, I mean, Bernie Sanders is still fighting for that $200 payment. Faith Moore says she's listening. Hi, Faith. She's been a long supporter of the channel. Thank you so much for being here. Mary said, of course, it was not included. Mary referring to the Social Security Expansion Act, which Bernie Sanders was hoping to include in this package. Lester said that he just landed, referring to Zelensky, who is coming to the U.S. to celebrate the fact that the U.S. is spending in total in 2022 and 2023, looks like it's going to be about $80 billion, right? Which could have gone a long way to increase benefits or bolster retirement programs. Now, Faithmore said we need to clean up our own backyard. Absolutely. We should be fixing our programs here before we start helping other countries. Vote Blue for Democracy said we need to vote for more Democrats like Bernie Sanders because Bernie cares about seniors. Absolutely. I agree. Now, whether you vote Democrat or Republican, it's not about that, but it's about voting for those who are actually going to help fix the retirement programs. Diane said Bernie is correct. If you guys just joined the stream, make sure you rewind and take a look and see what Bernie Sanders said in today's show. Now, Lori said, so true. I believe she was referring to Bernie Sanders' comments as well. Let's take a look. Now, Faith said, while we are assisting other countries, American children and American people are starving. The child tax credit is in order. Faith, thank you so much. All right, folks. Well, with that said, thank you so much for watching. Again, if you like this content, like and subscribe. I will keep you posted on everything that affects your retirement across the board. I hope you guys are having a good day, and I'll see you on the next show.